initiate self-destruct. Alright, we got that out of the way. Now let's paint up a droid. We have an IG unit here, which is a perfect opportunity for me to talk about metallics, the best metallics you can use, how to use them, and how to properly use your ink washes. A majority of metallic paints, in a nutshell, are composed of a paint binder, mica, and a little bit of coloring. Mica is what gives it that metallic sheen, and to be honest, it's pretty crap. That's the reason why metallics tend to be a lot more goopy and thicker than your typical regular acrylic paint. Now, if you're looking for your best possible, easy to use and clean up brush on acrylic metallic, I actually recommend Vallejo Model Air. They use aluminum powder in their metallics rather than mica, so you get a much smoother sheen, and it's much thinner than your regular metallics, so it goes on very easy. Before you ask, I recommend getting gunmetal, steel, pretty much all you need there to paint most armor and weapons, and also rust is very good as an undercoat for brown colors. So finally, let's get to our actual paint job. And to begin with, we are starting off with about a 50-50 mix of gunmetal and steel. This is going to be our main color for our droid. Our second color is straight steel. I'm using this to add a little bit of highlight here and there, virtually not really much. The main thing I'm using this for is just to add another color, to break up the monotony of our kind of dark steel color. So a few panels here and there, just adding the straight steel to add just a small amount of variety. Using the droid from the Mandalorian as color inspiration, I'm adding a little bit of a brass color to our droid here, and that's where we need to talk about the other metallics in the Vallejo range. The Vallejo Model Air metallics are really great and smooth, but they do have a problem because of the aluminum powder. They're very difficult to dye a different color. So when it comes to brown metallics, with the exception of the rust, the gold and the brass tend to be really far off what they should be. So in this situation, we're going to be forced to use our Vallejo game colors for our browns and our golds. 3 colors I have here is actually more than enough. Just a bottle of brass or bronze, and gold is really all you need. So then back to our droid. Once again, mix of bronze and steel, about a 50-50 mix. Just doing the base coat, no highlighting necessary for this project. For the shoulder pads, adding just a touch of gold, and I did paint those with the previous bronze mixture because with the non-air metallics, they are a little bit transparent. You do need to apply an undercoat for them most of the time. And then last but not least, our final base coat, a mix of gunmetal and black ink. Just painting this in a few areas, so once again we have a little bit more color variation on the model, so it's not just all steel. All those little plates look slightly different from one another. And why did I use black ink rather than black paint? Well, that leads us to the second half of the video. So all the painting that we did so far is kind of like the highlights on the model, and the base coat and the shades, we're going to add those via ink washes. And again, we are using inks rather than paint here because inks let the metallic sheen of the metallic paint shine through. We're going to be using a mix of black and brown ink, and I'm also mixing in some glaze varnish to slow down the dry time so I could clean up any messy spots as we move along. Our first layer is going to be applied fairly thin. We have quite a bit of water added to our ink here, and this is kind of to prep the area. If you're doing inks over a very large surface area, it's best to put down a fairly light coat first, and it tends to help the preceding layers to stick a little bit better. And because we have steel and brown areas on our droid, our mix of black and brown can shade everything. Brown works very well for the gold, bronze areas, and also for the gray areas. Brown adds a little bit of dirt and rust, which is perfect for our desert droid. Second first, same as the first. Same mixture we used in the first step, I'm just reapplying it. If you're not sure how thin to make your washes, it's always best to err on the side of too thin, because then all you have to do is simply apply a second wash. If you apply a wash that's too dark, well, you're kind of screwed then. This and the previous wash is not only giving us shade to the model, it's also adding color. We're getting a little bit of tarnish. That brown is building up. Things are looking a little bit dirty and decrepit, which is perfect. And while I'm putting it on fairly heavy here, I am trying to make sure that it's not drying too heavy in spots where I don't want it. That's why we have the glaze medium there. So if I get a drop somewhere on a raised surface area where I don't want it, I can just go back with the brush, wick it up real quick, and no harm, no foul. Third and final ink wash, going thicker this time. A little bit more brown ink, a little bit more black ink, a little bit less water. And as you can see, well, partially see, slightly off camera. Remember, I'm testing out a new camera rig. This one's being applied much more carefully. We're going into the recesses now, areas that I want very dark. That's where we're applying it. So this is more of a shade wash, not a color wash. We're pretty much done with the paint job with the exception of the bandolier. However, I wanted to mention painting the guns real quick because we're going to paint these differently than we painted the rest of the droid, and I want to explain why. So for the guns, we are base coating with gunmetal and black paint, not ink. And the reason for that is because guns, or blasters in this case, tend to be oiled, blackened oil color, not super shiny. So by adding the paint rather than using ink, it takes some of the sheen out of the gunmetal, the Vallejo Model Air metallic, which is what we want in this case. And then once that was dry, I doubled down on this and applied a black paint wash over the blasters. Once again, taking down that sheen. If we just used ink, most of the sheen would remain, but the paint is going to take it away. So use what's appropriate depending on what you're painting. And there we go, one painted droid and done super easy. All we did was a base coat and a couple of sloppy ink washes, and that was it. Of course, you can use this exact same technique on any small pieces of armor, or if you have something that's heavily armored, you can be a little bit less cautious with the ink washes like I was here. Also, you could change up your colors. If you want something cleaner, go with blue inks and black inks, even a little purple maybe. I've had a lot of luck recently using green on armor. Looks pretty good. So experiment, try it out, see what you come up with. Main point is that very fine metallic that we're using, those Vallejo Model Airs. I highly recommend those. Once again, stay away from the brown colors. Gold's not very gold. Copper actually tends to turn green in the bottle, at least last time I bought one. But that rust is a very good undercoat and a nice deep bronze color. And you can see, even though I have flat varnished the model, we still have a nice metallic sheen to our IG-37 droid. I don't know. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Push the button, Frank.
I am the button.